Hello everybody, and welcome again to my channel. I'm making this video in response to some response I had to previous videos. So specifically, somebody posted a response to my video on November 2016 JW Broadcasting, and also Concerned JW is trying to help. Now, he posted the same thing on both videos, so I only responded to one of them. I responded on Concerned JW is trying to help. And it was interesting because this individual's post, obviously he's a very indoctrinated member of Jehovah's Witnesses, perhaps high up, I don't know, but he started his post by completely ignoring everything that was in the video. And he basically tried to prove that Jehovah's Witnesses were God's organization by the fact they preach. So I responded to this. You're welcome to look into the conversation thread. In fact, I encourage you to do so. It's Now, from my standpoint, it's interesting. You might think it's really boring. I don't know. But anyway, so I pretty much took issue with him for the things he said that were basically not true. And there was some back and forth. And eventually I presented him with some information first I presented him with scriptures which demonstrated that his criteria for selecting the true Christians and the criteria he was using was a preaching work was not the criteria laid out by Jesus. And also, the Bible shows us that people will have more gifts than just preaching, and that doesn't mean they're any better or worse. So he seemed to have not quite known how to respond to this, so he goes back to his typical indoctrination rhetoric. And then I presented him with quotations from Watchtower literature, which demonstrated both that they had said they were prophets, basically, and that they said that they knew something that other people didn't. And this was fascinating because I talked to him about I said something about the fact that the Watchtower had predicted things that hadn't come to pass. And his response was to tell me that the quotations from Watchtower literature were propaganda. Now, I've got to hand it to him. This put me into an interesting position. Is on one level, yes, he's right. Watchtower literature is propaganda. I have to agree with him on that level. But the funny thing is, he was trying to say that I was misrepresenting what the Watchtower had taught. And this was despite the fact that I gave references that people could look up for themselves to go and fact-check me. So the reality of the situation was he was trying to pretend that old Watchtower literature was propaganda, or that I had presented propaganda, when in fact I presented the teachings of the organization he was trying to defend. So this was kind of fascinating to me. It never occurred to me that one of Jehovah's Witnesses would refer to their own literature as propaganda. Yet that's what this individual did. I don't know if this was just a freelance person, if this was somebody who's working for the brand. I have no idea. I have no way of knowing. But it really fascinated me that instead of attempting to address the facts that I presented, that they could have easily researched for themselves. They could have looked it up on their CD-ROM. They could have gone to a Kingdom Hall. Most of the stuff I quoted is probably still in their literature. Instead of attempting to do any of those things, they just told me that I was presenting propaganda. So on one level, yes, they were completely correct. I was presenting propaganda, but it was not propaganda of my own origination. It was propaganda that was written by Watchtower, in most cases, decades ago. So what I did is I presented Watchtower propaganda as proof of who they were, and this individual correctly called it out as propaganda, but he incorrectly identified the source, thinking that it was me. I was not the source of that propaganda. Please go back and follow that thread, look this stuff up for yourself, make your own decisions. At some juncture, the last thing this individual responded to me was that basically I was Satan's puppet, and I was a propaganda person, whatever you want to call it, blah, blah, blah. So I basically told them, I cited a quotation from the Awake magazine from 2000, demonstrating that when you cannot prove someone wrong, you start to call them names, hoping that people who are listening will agree with the names that you're calling them and won't listen to their argumentation. So I basically presented information from the Watchtower Society that demonstrates that that individual was using propaganda to try and shut me down. So I'm making this video just because I was kind of surprised that somebody would refer to Watchtower's own literature as propaganda when they're trying to defend the Watchtower. And the really ironic part for me is I agree with him. Watchtower's literature is propaganda. But that being the case, is to expose them for what they're doing, I at times have to reference their propaganda to show people that it is in fact propaganda. I do not support Watchtower propaganda. I support logic and reason, and Watchtower propaganda has none of those things. So that's just, it fascinated me. I've never had a response like that from an indoctrinated witness, but this particular time I did. This person is apparently Italian. They have a picture of themselves as dressed up in a suit and a tie, respectable and all, and they thought they were going to go and defend the faith. And the one thing they did by attempting to defend the faith is agree with me that Watchtower prints nothing more than propaganda. So I thank you for that, and please check out the conversation thread for yourself. It's on Concerned JW's Trying to Help. It's, I think, 2 videos before this one. Follow the whole thing. Research the information I provided. Don't take my word for it. Never take my word for anything that I present to you. One place where I differ with Watchtower, well, one of many places where I differ with Watchtower, is that when I present information, I want you to research it for yourself. I will never expect you to take me on my word. Watchtower always expects you to take them at their word, and they are upset if you research because many times they're misquoting things. That's the definition of propaganda. So please, look at both sides of the argument for yourself. Look at this individual's argumentation. Look at my responses. Please, form your own opinion. I wanted to make this video because I was really surprised that for the first time that I'm used to it, one of Jehovah's Witnesses referred to their own literature as being propaganda. And I'm sure that's not what he intended to do. He thought that I was promoting propaganda. But the reality is, either he didn't read what I wrote, or he didn't research what I wrote, and that made him basically refer to his own literature as propaganda. So I agree with him. It's propaganda. Anyways, thanks for watching.